The slave nobody wanted. The slave market was loud and full of cruel laughter. Aliens of all kinds stood behind cages, yelling out prices and showing off their strongest slaves. Giant warriors with forearms, mind readers, and fast runners, every one of them was being sold to the highest bidder. But in the corner, behind a rusted cage door, sat a small alien girl. Her skin was pale gray, covered in scars. Her long black hair was dirty and tangled. Her eyes were tired. She didn't speak. She didn't look up. She just stared at the ground like she had already given up. No one went near her cage. "She's broken," one alien merchant laughed. "Can't fight, can't clean, can't even stand properly, worthless." "She's still alive," another said. "Barely, leave her, no one wants that trash." And so the auction went on. One by one, all the other slaves were sold. The buyers cheered. Gold and weapons were traded. The slavers smiled and counted their earnings. Then the sun began to set. The last deal was made. "She's the only one left," the auctioneer said, pointing lazily at the girl in the corner. "Shut the cage, we'll throw her back in the pit." But just then a voice came from the edge of the crowd. "I'll take her." The crowd turned. A tall human stepped forward. He wore a dark coat and heavy boots covered in dust from long travel. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't look at the other slaves. He looked only at her. The auctioneer blinked. "What did you say?" "I said," the human repeated, walking slowly toward the cage, "I'll take her." The crowd laughed. One alien shouted, "Are you blind, human? She's useless." "She's not worth one credit," another said. But the human didn't answer. He pulled out a small gold token and dropped it into the auctioneer's hand. The auctioneer shrugged. "Fine, she's yours. No refunds." The cage door creaked open. The girl flinched. The human knelt down. He didn't touch her. He only said, "Can you walk?" She didn't answer. He placed a water bottle near her feet. "Drink. We'll leave when you're ready. No whip, no chains, no threats." The crowd grew quiet. Some were confused. Some were amused. "She won't last a day," a voice whispered. The girl looked at the water. Her hand shook as she reached for it. She drank slowly, then looked at the human for the first time. Why? That question was in her eyes. Why would he take her? He didn't explain. He only waited. When she finished, he stood and offered her a cloak. She wrapped it around herself, her body weak and cold. She tried to stand. Her legs trembled, but she stood anyway. He nodded once and turned. Without a word, they walked away from the market. That night, they camped near a quiet hill. The stars above them were bright. The girl sat by the fire, still silent. The human cooked, something in a small pot. The smell made her stomach ache. He gave her a bowl. She hesitated, then ate. Every bite was painful. It had been days since she had food. But she finished it all. "You're safe now," he said softly. She looked at him. "No one is safe," she replied in a dry, cracked voice. The human didn't argue. He only said, "You are, with me." Silence followed. The girl wrapped the cloak tighter around her. Her hands still shook. Her scars burned in the cold wind. She didn't know who this human was. She didn't know why he bought her. But for the first time in years, no one called her worthless. No one hit her. No one forced her to sleep in chains. She lay down near the fire. She didn't trust him. But deep in her heart, something tiny and soft began to rise. Something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. And with that strange new feeling, her eyes closed. She slept without fear. The human's strange kindness, she woke up before the sun. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Her body tensed, ready for pain, ready for commands shouted in cruel alien tongues. But there was no cage, no slavers, just a warm fire, soft dirt under her, and the sound of quiet breathing. She turned her head. The human was sleeping beside the fire, his back against a tree, arms crossed, his jacket pulled tight. His weapon rested nearby, but not in his hand. He had not tied her up. He had not locked her down. She could run. But her legs were still weak. And more than that, something in her didn't want to. When the sun rose, the human stood and stretched. He looked at her and simply asked, "Hungry?" She nodded once. He gave her more food, not much, but warm and fresh. He didn't speak while she ate. He just watched the trees, his eyes always moving. "Are you taking me to someone?" she asked, slowly. "No," he said. "Selling me?" "No." "Then why?" Her voice cracked. "Why did you choose me?" The human didn't answer right away. Instead, he knelt near the fire and picked up a broken stick. He drew a shape in the dirt. 2 circles and a smaller dot between them. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. She looked. It was a symbol she had seen long ago. A human military mark. "A rescue sign," she whispered. He nodded. "I was a soldier," he said. "A long time ago. I saw many slaves. Most looked strong, most could be used, but none of them looked at the ground like you did." She frowned. "That made you choose me?" The human met her eyes. "You weren't trying to escape. You weren't hoping someone would save you. You had already given up." She looked away. "That's when I knew," he continued. "You weren't waiting for someone to help. You were already dying, but you were still alive." His voice softened. "I don't rescue the strong. I rescue the forgotten." They walked through dry forests and rocky paths. The sun was harsh, and the wind carried the scent of old metal, wreckage from wars past. She limped, but he didn't rush her. He offered water often. He helped her climb steep rocks but never held her too long. He never touched her without asking. At night, he gave her a blanket. He slept on the cold ground. She watched him carefully. He always seemed to be listening, to the trees, to the sky, to things unseen. But sometimes she caught something else in him. Loneliness. On the 4th night, they reached a small hut made of scrap metal and old wood. It was hidden between cliffs, camouflaged with vines and dirt. No slaver would find it. "This is home," he said. Inside, it was simple. A bed, a table, and shelves filled with strange tools and books in many languages. He pointed to a soft mat near the window. "That's your spot. You'll be safe here." She didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the wall. Photos. Dozens of them. Aliens, like her. Different species, young, old, smiling. Some were standing next to the human. Some held hands. Some had scars just like hers. She stared at one photo. A female, blue-skinned with gentle eyes. She was leaning against the human, laughing. Her name was written below. Lena. The human noticed her staring. He didn't speak. "Where is she now?" the girl asked. He was quiet for a long time. "Gone." "Did she escape?" "No." She looked at him. "Did they kill her?" "No," he said again, his voice like stone. "She died saving me." Later that night, the girl sat beside the window, wrapped in the blanket. The stars above were strange but beautiful. The human sat across the room, fixing an old radio. Soft static buzzed in the silence. "I don't understand you," she finally said. He looked up. "You could have picked anyone. You could have ignored me." "I could have," he agreed. "Then why?" He set the radio down. "Because no one should be left behind. Not again." She looked at him for a long time. Then softly, she whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once. "Sleep. Tomorrow you'll get to decide what kind of life you want." As she lay down, her mind spun with questions, but her body relaxed. The human was strange, gentle, kind, and for the first time in years, she believed he meant it. Secrets in the human's cabin. The alien girl woke to the sound of soft humming. The human was outside working with strange machines. He had opened a metal box buried in the dirt. Wires, blinking lights, and old human tech covered the ground like puzzle pieces. She stepped out of the hut slowly, the morning light warming her scarred skin. "What are you doing?" she asked. He looked up and smiled lightly. Waking up the past. She tilted her head. Machines? He nodded. This used to be a rescue outpost during the Galactic Slave War, long time ago. She walked closer. You were part of that war? He paused. Yes. We lost more than we won. But I learned something important. What? Slavery never ends unless someone chooses to stop it. Not fight, not destroy, stop. Inside the cabin, the girl found more old things. Books written in human language, folded maps, a dusty screen on the wall that no longer worked. But one object drew her attention most. A locked metal chest near the bed. It had strange markings, symbols, from multiple alien languages, and a red fingerprint scanner. She reached for it, curious. Don't touch that, the human said sharply from behind her. She froze. His voice wasn't loud, but it had changed. Cold, firm. She pulled her hand back. He sighed, then walked over and placed his hand gently on the box. Not yet, he said. Some memories are dangerous. That night she couldn't sleep. The images on the walls kept flashing in her mind. Lena's smiling face, the other freed slaves. How many had there been? Where were they now? Why was she alone with him? Was she next? Or was she the last? The next morning, while the human went to gather supplies from the nearby ridge, she explored more of the hidden hut. In the corner, she found something strange. A cracked old helmet. Human military design. She picked it up and a faint voice whispered from inside. Unit 4, respond. Lena is down, we are. The voice faded into static. Her hands trembled. She placed it down carefully. She had heard Lena's name before, but this was from the moment she died. When the human returned, he found her sitting silently near the fire. You found the helmet, he said softly. She nodded. She was special to you. She was more than that. He whispered. She believed in something most people don't. What? He looked her in the eyes. She believed slaves didn't need to be saved. They just needed to be given a choice. The girl stared at the fire. No one gave me a choice. He placed a small device next to her. A hollow chip. Until now. She touched the chip and a screen appeared. It showed her name, her species, and something else. Freedom papers. Unregistered. She blinked. Is this real? He nodded. You're not mine, he said. You never were. She couldn't believe it. She was free? Tears welled in her eyes, but she pushed them back. Why would you do this? Because I failed Lena, he said, quietly. But maybe I can honor what she believed. She spent the next few days learning how to use some of the old tech. To the human's surprise, she had a natural ability to connect with the interface systems. Her species, once treated as weak and broken, had powerful minds suited for linking with older AI systems. I can fix this one, she said one evening, pointing to a half-dead console. He chuckled. I've tried for years. Then watch. Me? She grinned. He watched, smiling softly. One night, as they sat under the stars, she turned to him. I want to know what's in the metal chest, she said. He didn't answer right away. It holds the last recording from Lena, he said. Finally. Her final mission. Her final choice. Why won't you open it? He looked up at the stars. Because she told me. It should only be opened by someone who was once a slave, but chose to become more. The girl's eyes widened. She understood. Now, it wasn't just about freedom. It was about what she would do with it. The human handed her a small device. Take your time. When you're ready, open it. She nodded slowly, her heart beating fast. The human had seen something in her. Something even she had forgotten. She wasn't just the one nobody wanted. She might become the one the galaxy needed. Her first stand. The wind howled across the broken cliffs. A strange silence fell over the forest around the cabin. No birds, no insects, not even the rustling of small animals. The girl stood near the cabin door, her senses sharper than ever. Something felt wrong. The human had gone out to check an old signal tower 2 hours ago. He wasn't back. She paced nervously, her heart pounding. She kept glancing toward the hill trail he had taken. Each time it was still empty. Suddenly the radio inside the cabin crackled. "They found me. Don't come. Hide. Repeat. Don't." Static. The message cut out. Her blood turned cold. She grabbed the small hand knife he gave her for emergencies. It felt too light, too useless, but it was all she had. She looked at the door, then at the box she wasn't supposed to open. She ran to it, slammed her hand on the scanner. The red light blinked, a long pause. Then, click. The chest opened. Inside was a worn data pad, a black wristband, and a folded uniform, Lena's. She ignored everything else and grabbed the wristband. As soon as she put it on, a voice whispered, in her head. "Biolink confirmed. Lena's override key accepted." A screen blinked to life on the wall. Maps, codes, and defense options lit up. She didn't understand all of it, but she didn't have to. She clicked the emergency scan button. 3 heat signatures were approaching. 2 large, 1 small. Slavers. And they had a prisoner. She bolted out of the cabin, running like she had never run before. Her body screamed in pain, but her mind didn't stop. The human had saved her. Now it was her turn. She followed the hill path, then slid down through the sharp rocks, ignoring the blood on her hands and legs. She moved like a shadow, her eyes locked on the trees ahead. Then she saw them. 2 slavers, massive, armored, dragging the human behind them. He was limp, blood on his forehead. They were speaking in a tongue she once feared. "Check the hut," one growled. "She might be useful after all." "No," the other laughed. "Let her rot. We'll get more credits for the human." She hid behind a tree, heart racing. She could run back, hide. But something inside her snapped. Not this time. She picked up a heavy rock, moved slowly, silently. Then, with all her strength, she smashed it into the back of the second slaver's knee. He roared in pain. The other turned, and she threw dirt in his eyes and stabbed his neck with her tiny knife. It barely cut through, but it surprised him enough that he dropped the human. The poor girl grabbed the human's arm and dragged him behind a fallen log, breathing hard. She didn't cry. She didn't scream, she just moved. One slaver recovered fast, picking up a shock stick. The other pulled a blaster. She had no weapon now, but she had the wristband. She tapped it. The ground trembled. From the cliffs above, a hidden turret system woke up. A red laser locked on. The turret fired. The first slaver fell. The second tried to run, but the blast caught his leg. Silence returned to the forest. The girl dropped to her knees, chest rising and falling like a drum. She crawled to the human. His eyes opened slowly. "You came," he whispered. "You told me to hide," she said. "But I don't listen very well." He gave a weak smile. Neither did Lena. They returned to the cabin together. She supported his weight, limping beside him like a soldier returning from war. Inside, she patched his wounds the way he taught her. "You did well," he said softly. She looked at her shaking hands. "I was scared." He nodded. "But you acted anyway, that's courage." She sat in silence for a while, then finally asked the question that burned in her chest. "What was I to you, in the beginning?" He looked at her. "The one nobody wanted," he replied. "But I hoped you would want yourself someday." She didn't reply. But in her heart, something shifted. She wasn't a slave. She wasn't a mistake. She had stood. She had fought. And she had won. Hunted by her past, smoke rose from the trees. They had only hours left. The slavers had sent a signal before they died, and now others were coming. Not just any slavers, Her former owners, the ones who had marked her neck with fire, the ones who had laughed when she cried, the ones who left her to rot in that cage. They weren't coming to capture, they were coming to erase her. She sat by the window, staring at her reflection in the broken glass. She could still see the scars on her collar, the brand, the chains that weren't there anymore but still felt like they were. Behind her, the human was packing supplies. Water, medical kits, power cells. "We need to leave before nightfall," he said. She didn't answer. He glanced at her. "They won't stop, you know. They want you gone. You saw something back then. Something important." She looked at him. "I don't remember. You were only a child. But they're afraid you might remember. Why didn't they just kill me?" "Because even monsters sometimes hesitate." They left the cabin before sunset. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't want to. The cabin had been her first taste of peace, but peace was not her future. Not yet. They traveled deep into the dead lands where old machines rusted under the soil and shadows moved without sound. She asked, "Why do you still help me?" The human looked ahead. "Because someone once helped me when I was hunted." "Lena?" "No," he said softly. "Someone before her. Someone who didn't make it." The girl was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "I don't want to run anymore." He stopped. "What do you mean?" She turned to him, eyes burning. "I want to stop them." They set up a small camp inside the ruins of a crashed freighter, its twisted metal bones now their shelter. The human gave her a map. "This was a slaver hub once," he said. "Underground tunnels, communication lines. If we hit the relay here," he pointed to a red mark, "we can send out a signal, expose them, free others." She stared at the spot. "This place? I've been there." He looked up. "You remember?" She nodded slowly. "They kept us underground. We didn't see sunlight for months." He handed her a comlink. "Then we let them know. The girl they forgot is coming back." At dawn they moved. She led this time. Through tunnels filled with bones, past rooms where chains still hung from the walls. Each step brought back flashes, children crying, guards shouting, pain. She almost collapsed once, but the human caught her arm. "You're not that child anymore," he said. "No," she agreed. "I'm not." They reached the relay. The room was dark, powered by old fusion cells. The girl stepped forward, connecting her wristband to the console. It beeped, red, then yellow, then green. "Connected," she said. He looked at her. "Ready?" She nodded. He flipped the switch. Across the galaxy, silent channels blinked to life. Data, names, locations, records of every slave sold and every crime hidden, was sent to resistance groups, to old allies, and to systems that once turned away. A voice recording played automatically. "To those who have suffered in silence, this is your proof. You were not forgotten. You were just waiting." But the signal had a cost. Alarms screamed. Boots thundered down the tunnels. The slavers were already here. The girl and the human ran. Blaster fire lit the halls. One shot burned her shoulder, but she kept moving, teeth clenched. They reached a backup lift, but only one person could fit. He turned to her. "You go." "No," she said. "You're the one they're afraid of, not me. You're the story now." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "We go together." He smiled. "Stubborn, just like Lena." Then he pulled her into the lift and slammed the button. As the doors closed, she saw him turn to face the guards, weapon raised. The lift rose. Her heart pounded. When it opened, sunlight blinded her. She stepped into the forest, alone. But in her hand was the datapad, proof of what they did. And in her soul a fire. She didn't run. She turned, faced the burning entrance of the tunnel. She waited. Minutes passed. Then a figure stumbled out, bloody, bruised, but alive. The human. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They had not just escaped. They had fought back. And for the first time, the galaxy would listen. The turning point. The old universe was changing. Not with battles, not with politics, but with a signal. Sent by a girl once called Worthless. Across distant planets, rebel networks played her message. In quiet corners of slave markets, terrified eyes lifted toward the stars. And somewhere deep inside a system ruled by fear, one sentence was whispered, over and over. She came back. The girl stood at the edge of a war museum hidden deep underground, abandoned since humanity's last great war. Old weapons, dusty drones, rusted armor suits, forgotten by time, but not by the human. "This is where we make our stand," he said. She looked around, unsure. "These things, they're broken," he smiled. "Not to you?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're not just free now," he explained. "You're connected. To tech. To old systems. The slavers thought your mind was weak, but it's wired. For control." She reached out and touched a long-dead machine. It hummed. Then it glowed. The lights turned on. The room breathed again. He watched her with quiet awe. "You're not a weapon," he said. "You're an answer." They began preparing. She activated old drones, repaired them with new code and sharper purpose. He trained her in combat. Simple, moves, fast reactions, how to aim, how to survive. But more than that, she trained herself. She stood straighter now, spoke clearer, eyed with steady hands. No more flinching, no more waiting for permission. She was learning to lead. At night, she listened to messages from across the galaxy. Slaves hiding in mountains. Children working in mines. Whispered voices calling her a ghost. A hero. A dream. She didn't feel like a hero, but she remembered the cage, the laughs, the moment the human knelt and offered her water instead of chains, and she knew one truth. She would never kneel again. One morning, she activated the biggest machine in the bunker, a forgotten human war droid. It stood 3 times her size, covered in scars from battles long gone. She placed her hand on the core. Her eyes glowed faintly. The machine blinked. Link established. Command accepted. The human stared. She looked at him and said, "We don't need to run anymore." He grinned. "You finally believe it?" "I don't just believe it," she said. "I feel it." The slavers came, not quietly this time. Ships roared through the sky. Drop pods slammed into the earth. They brought fire. They brought numbers, and they expected fear. But what they found instead was her, standing at the gate, calm, ready. By her side, war drones, rebuilt cannons, and one old human who refused to let the galaxy stay cruel. The first wave fell fast. She guided the drones like fingers of her own body. She moved between shadows, directing energy to the right turrets, using old maps to trap enemies in their own path. She didn't fight like a soldier. She fought like someone who had survived the worst and learned from it. She fought like a leader. In the middle of the battle, a slaver ship hovered above, broadcasting her face on giant screens. The slaver captain shouted, "You are a broken girl. We gave you life. We owned you." She stared up at the camera and answered simply, "You owned my pain, not me." Then she raised her hand, and the war droid fired its main cannon. The ship exploded in the sky, lighting up the horizon. Hours later, the battlefield was silent. The slavers were gone. Some fled, some captured, many destroyed. She walked through, the smoke, her cloak torn, face bruised but unshaken. Other slaves emerged from hiding, children, old ones, the forgotten. They looked at her like she was something from legend. She didn't give a speech. She just handed a small girl a data pad and said, "This one's yours now. Build something better." The human came to her side, limping but smiling. "You changed everything," he said. She shook her head. "We did." "No," he said gently. "I only lit the fire. You made it burn." That night she stood on a hill and looked at the stars. The wind moved softly around her like it no longer carried screams. "Do you think Lena would be proud?" she asked. The human didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I think she would. Follow you." The girl smiled, quiet, full of strength. "I think the galaxy will follow me too." The galaxy saw her as trash, but she became a legend the stars watched in silence. Across dozens of systems, screens flickered with her name, her face, her fire. Some called her the ghost of the chains. Others called her the broken one who broke. Everything but to those who had nothing, to those who still sat in dark cages. Alone, afraid, she was hope given a name, and she wasn't done yet. The war wasn't over. The slaver lords were retreating but not defeated. They regrouped in the outer void, gathering ships, buying mercenaries, offering bounties for her head. Her bounty price rose each week. 50 million credits. One slaver broadcasted a cruel message. "We will hang her chains from the moon." She didn't respond publicly, but she turned to the human and said, "We'll burn that moon first." She was no longer hiding. Now she walked into the places that once owned her. Once she entered a mining station where hundreds of child slaves worked under whips. The guards raised their weapons. She raised her hand. A small drone zipped through the air and sprayed a single gas, non-lethal but powerful. The guards fell asleep. The children didn't cheer. They stared. "Are you real?" One boy whispered. She knelt down and handed him a med kit. "You are," she said, "and that's enough." On another day, she walked into a council chamber filled with alien leaders who once profited from slavery. They wore robes, rings, titles. She wore her old cloak, still torn at the edge, and the scar on her neck left by fire. They tried to talk over her. She didn't shout. She placed a small hollow device on the table. It played the sound of children crying in chains. She looked them in the eyes and asked one question. "How much is silence worth now?" None answered. But one by one, they stood and left. Shamed, her forces grew. Not armies, but movements. One planet lit its cities with her symbol, a burning chain in a circle of stars. Another declared a day of the unwanted, where no voice would be ignored. Her name was sung in alleys, written on walls, whispered like a prayer, but with power came pain. One night, the human, her companion, her friend, her first savior, collapsed. She found him leaning against a tree, his breathing slow. She rushed to his side. "No," she whispered. "Not now. Please, not now." He smiled through the pain. "You don't need me anymore." "Yes, I do," she said. "No," he said gently. "You're the one they follow. I was just the one who pointed." Tears filled her eyes. "You gave me a chance." He took her hand. "Then promise me one thing. Anything. Never let this turn into revenge. Don't become the monster they were." She nodded slowly, voice breaking. "I won't." He closed his eyes and rested. She buried him on a hill where the stars shone brightest. She didn't cry in front of others, but alone she whispered to the wind, "You didn't save a slave. You woke up a storm, and the storm wasn't over yet." The final battle came sooner than expected. The slaver fleet had gathered around the moon of Varka Prime, a stronghold protected by centuries of stolen tech. She didn't have warships. She had will. Her forces were made of engineers, ex-slaves, old rebels, scavenger pilots. They didn't have uniforms. They had purpose. She gave one speech before the assault. Not long, not loud. She stood in front of the fleet, broadcasting her voice to every ship. "You know who I was," she said. "You know where I came from. They left me in a cage. They called me worthless, but I'm still here. I don't want to rule. I don't want to conquer. I just want to break every last chain." Silence. Then, one pilot saluted. Another raised her fist. One by one, a sea of hands, claws, wings, and metal limbs lifted in unity. The attack began. The battle was chaos, bright and brutal. But she was everywhere, From a small fighter ship, she directed waves, bypassed defenses, overloaded shields. She used her mind, not muscle. Her enemies couldn't keep up. One by one, the slaver ships fell. The final ship tried to escape. She pursued alone, docked onto its hull, broke in through a cargo door using the same hands that were once chained. Inside, she found a room full of slaves, trapped in glass, drugged. She freed them first. Then she found the captain, tall, powerful, covered in gold. "You," he sneered. "You're just a scared girl." She didn't answer. She stepped forward, and the war droid followed behind her, its steps shaking the ship. She pointed at the captain and said, "You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of what I show the galaxy. That even the forgotten can rise." He charged at her. She didn't move. The war droid did. One hit. Silence. She walked away without turning back. The moon fell. Not destroyed, freed. She sent a message from its broken palace, standing under a torn flag. "Let this be the last place where chains were ever sold," she said. "Because we're not broken, we're just getting started." Years later, legends were told of her. Children studied her name in schools. Slaves still trapped on unknown worlds held onto her story like a star in darkness, and her face was carved into the walls of freedom monuments, not with a crown, not with weapons, but with her hand outstretched holding another's hand, the girl no one wanted, the one the galaxy threw away, became the one who changed it, forever. The end.